All right, so today I am interviewing the lovely Kate Northrup, who is the author of the new release, Money, a Love Story, Untangle Your Financial Woes and Create the Life You Really Want. And I have to tell you, that title is so compelling to me on a number of levels. But welcome, Kate.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Erin.
Well, Kate and I have been friends for a couple of years now, and I knew this book was being birthed in her. I knew she was writing it over the past year. So I got the serious luxury of being able to look at an advanced copy, and this book is phenomenal, truly phenomenal, Kate.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
When you publish a book, it's just like this. It's like giving birth to a child, something that makes you feel a little vulnerable, but doesn't it? But at the same time, it's just one of the coolest experiences because you and what you've written is going to literally help so many people. And I just can't tell all of you who are reading or who are watching today how much you should go out and get this book, because it was one of those things where every time I found something, I was like, yes, I'm like circling and highlighting and wanting to write things down. And you don't always read books like that, but this book is definitely going to be one that is going to touch lives of so many people. Now, I focus a lot on inspiring and writing for mothers. And I feel like your book is extremely powerful for anybody, but in particular for mothers, because so many of us, after we have babies, Kate, and it's like you kind of predicted this yourself, you go through some serious changes in your life, and you so desperately want to have the freedom to choose to be whatever kind of mother that you want to, based on your heart and your soul, not on financial requirements, which so many of us have to work just to support our families. And so what Kate has done is she has very consciously set herself up to be successful before she's even going down the motherhood road, so that she can be that mom. So along with that story, can you just tell us what was the drive behind writing this book and getting the word out about your relationship with money?
Sure. The drive was getting myself into my own financial pickle. I started a business when I was 18, and you've kind of hinted to the fact that I did that because I wanted to create financial freedom by the age of 30 so that I could stay home with my kids and just really be a mom if I want to be a mom and not have to worry about the money piece, and be able to be a mom with my husband as well, soon to be husband. And I did that, moved to New York City 4 years after I started my business, and I promptly got myself into $20,000 worth of credit card debt. And I was really in a financial pickle. I was living in an apartment that my mother owned. I had no good excuse to get into debt. I mean, it was even more shameful because of that, because I had help.
New York is so expensive too.
Oh, okay, New York is so expensive. So if I hadn't had help, I probably would have gotten into 40,000. So anyway, I had that happen, and then I had a journey of kind of self-inquiry around it, and why can't I get it together, and why don't I have the willingness to get it together, and all these things. And I spent several years beating myself up about it, until I really put the two things together, that my financial awareness had to be combined with self-love. And once I did that, I was able to pay off all of the debt. I doubled my income. I doubled my savings. I fell in love. I got a book deal. All these amazing things happened as a result of financial awareness and financial love, and creating a love affair with my money. So I wrote the book because I wanted other people to have access to those tools, so that they could create whatever results in their life are right for them.
Well, it's so interesting, Kate, because I really never thought I had financial issues because, I went to college. My parents paid for my college. I went to grad school. I had an assistantship. I went straight into having a good job. I had some debt, but I was able to pay it off when I was first married because my husband paid for things. And then when I decided to, totally throw my life into a loop and quit my job and become an author, and all of a sudden I went from this salary to nothing. And it made me realize all these issues came up. And so many things that you wrote about, and so many things I've heard you talk about, struck such a nerve with me. And the one thing that I think so many of us can relate to, you said you were a chronic avoider. And I'd never heard anybody say that before, but I realized that I'm a chronic avoider in a couple areas of my life. The scale, I never weigh myself. and then
may not be a good thing.
yeah, and then the bank. I just, when it did, I knew it wasn't going to say a number that I was happy about. I just stopped looking, which is really unhealthy because it was almost easier just to not worry about it. But yeah, and when I was reading your story, I realized that I had so many similar patterns. Like my family never talked about money growing up, ever. So I never put a lot of thought into it. And so then the things that came up for me were fear. I had a lot of fear around money.
Yeah.
And another thing that you said is that your mom didn't really have to pay attention to money until, she's going through this divorce. And that's a scary thing, I've realized, for a lot of women. And a lot of women stay in marriages that are unhealthy, that are unhappy, because they're scared of leaving for financial reasons.
A huge problem. And, also even if you have a wonderful marriage, the average age of widowhood is 56. So that's so young. And so, even if you have found your Prince Charming and he's so amazing and he's taking care of all the money for you, it's a really good idea to start having meetings with him and learning about what's going on with your family's finances so that you can have that empowerment. Even if you aren't the one out there earning the money, if you are a stay-at-home mom or something, you're still providing value to the family in a huge way. So you really deserve to know what's going on and be part of the decision-making process.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think a lot of women struggle with self-esteem issues related to money when they feel like they've given up their power to stay home raising families. When that's kind of a sad way to see it, but it is such a truth. It's really interesting how it affects so much more than just, your day-to-day financial situation.
Totally.
And one thing that you've done that really nobody's done is you've linked love and money. It's such a simple thing, but money is totally energetic. And I say this, I've always known that. And, if you're putting fear and negative thoughts into your money, you're most likely not going to have a lot of successful outcomes.
No, just like a relationship.
Yeah. And how much self-love. I was reading a lot of what you wrote about related to self-care. And that is really powerful for me and for, my work.
Yeah, it's so similar to what you teach women about getting their mind and body back after a baby. I think it's so, it's like, the thing is, regardless of if it's your health, if it's your spirit, if it's your marriage, whatever, like it all comes back to love, and that works with money too.
It really does. Now, one of the things that I am so excited about is that you have feeling-based financial planning. As a feeling person, the creative in me, that's how I operate in every area of my life, but I've never seen anything like this where you can actually use, what we really are as women in particular, men too, but, we're such feeling creatures. Can you just describe the concept of feeling-based financial planning?
Sure. So I've always organized my life according to what feels good. So I just make decisions based on what feels good. And I don't really need reasons. But when it came to money, I met with my first financial advisor, and he asked me all sorts of questions and tried to put me into this little pigeonhole based on like some statistic. And I was just like, that's not me. Like, you're not asking me as a human being, as a woman, what I want and what my desires are. And so I decided to create this concept of feeling-based financial planning because we want money in order to feel, we want money essentially as a tool to get something or to do something that will then allow us to feel a certain way. And so if we just start off knowing that, then what we can do is we can work backwards from there, decide what our most important values are and what the way we want to feel is. And this is inspired by Danielle LaPorte's concept of the core desired feelings and the desire map. And really identify those things, like maybe the 3 or 4 core values that you have or ways you want to feel. And, mine have to do with freedom, for sure, is one of them. Health is a really big one. Adventure. So these are some of mine. And then you want to organize your spending in accordance with those things because money doesn't buy us happiness.
Right. I'm not leaving. Don't worry. I'm just...
look at you. Okay, see, there you go.
Okay. Yeah.
Love that. Money doesn't buy us happiness, but when we spend it in accordance with our values and towards the things that you just held up, then it actually does buy us happiness.
Well, I love it because actually I'm writing a proposal for my next book, and a lot of it is about living in alignment with your true priorities in life. And a lot of the women that come to me for coaching, when you really get down to it, they're feeling an underlying sense of dissatisfaction because they're not living or spending their money in a way that's in alignment with their true priorities or their true desired feelings in life.
They really are.
Yes.
So really, you got to ask the questions why. Like when you go to your financial advisor and they want you to buy this life insurance plan and that mutual fund and all this stuff, like you really have to ask why.
Yeah. And that's something that not a lot of people have brought to light, It's just it's a philosophy of approaching money that is so needed in this world. It's just amazing, Kate. I'm absolutely in love with this book. So I also am a huge fan of the core desired feelings, obviously, and I want to feel abundant, generous, alive, joyful, passionate, and influential.
Oh, love those. Those are great.
Kind of interesting. But, the past year, I look at how I was feeling and it wasn't generous. I didn't feel abundant. And that was because my own fear was taking over, especially with my finances because of the fact that I didn't have a steady paycheck coming in. So I don't know. I hope that your book gets in the hands of all the people that really need it. Let me see. What else did I want to talk about? I love how you talk about spending money in alignment with your values in the regard that I look at my budget, and my husband and I, like you, really value adventure and experiences.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have that as the lowest priority on our spending. And I think that's such an interesting thing. So this book is kind of prompting me to really delve into our finances a little deeper and look at ways that we can spend our money. We don't really care about, I want to have nice clothes. I want to look, but I don't really care if I wear designer clothes or Gap, really.
You can look good either way. And that is really important because, again, money doesn't buy us happiness, but when we spend in alignment with our values, we do feel happier. So it can be a pathway.
Absolutely. And another thing that you brought up that I think is so powerful is that up until about the salary of $50,000, there's definitely a point where you need to have enough to pay for your bills and to live fairly well. But after that, people that make $50,000 and don't feel any happier than people make $500,000.
Isn't that interesting?
That's a fascinating fact.
So money is not the indicating factor of happiness after about $50,000. There are other things. So probably there are some people making $500,000 who feel happier than those making $50,000, but it's not because of the money. It's because of their community. It's because of their exercising. There's all these different indicating factors, and you can watch the documentary Happy to find out more about that.
Well, I'm curious. Yeah, you mentioned that. I have not seen that. We're huge documentary fans, so that will be on our list.
Awesome.
But another thing that you really focus on is that it's really hard to be at your best when you're freaked out about money. Mm-hmm. And I see that with so many people in the community. You might drive by a house in a neighborhood where, there's things strewn all over the lawn and it just looks really junky. And it's because people at that point, they're not even to the point where they can care about things of the next level. They're just, so, bringing it to daily life for like myself, if I'm so worried about, paying a bill or whatever, I can't really focus on personal growth.
Yeah.
So I think getting your financial situation so that you're at least at that level where you're not worrying about basic bill paying, that is where we all need to be. So in closing, all the women out there who do have troubles with money, they are avoiding opening the mail. They're avoiding looking at their account because they're fearful of what they might find. If you could just offer them one closing tip, one thing to do that would change their life starting today, what would it be, Kate?
It would really be to tell the truth. I know it's like the last thing you want to do, but
yeah, but it's what you need to do.
It's what you need to do. When I was in that situation, I was spending way above my means. I was not looking at my credit card bills. I was going into overdraft regularly. What I did is I finally said, enough is enough. I love myself enough to get honest. And so I did it from a place of love, not from a place of blame. That was really important. And I sat down and I wrote down what I earned, what I was spending for a month. I just wrote down every single thing I spent. And then I wrote down who I owed, what the APR interest rate was, by when, all that stuff. And just having a clear financial snapshot was so powerful. And you can do this at home. And I recommend, if you're freaked out about it, have somebody you trust and who loves you unconditionally help you. And your husband may not be the best choice, only because, like, if you're both stressed out and in fear about money, it'll make it worse. Like, yeah, I might choose somebody who's further away from the situation and has a little more distance. And then just that, like, when you're using your GPS and typing in how to get somewhere, the GPS has to know where you're starting from in order to give you directions. So this is that exercise in knowing where you're starting from so that you can take directions forward, moving to where you want to go.
Yeah, it's kind of it's that sense of empowerment that comes from taking control.
Yeah.
And setting a path, because sometimes I think the avoidance thing is what we do just because it feels easier, but it's really not.
No, it's not. And it's like it would be like if instead of sweeping and putting the dust and the dirt into a dustpan and throwing it out, you just kept sweeping it under the rug, and then eventually you just have a big pile of dirt under your rug. It's kind of like the same thing. Like, when you're not dealing with it, you have to deal with it eventually, and you can either deal with it in small chunks like the dustpan, or you can, like, have this giant thing that you have to deal with later.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I see so many women, the feeling that comes up, it's a sense of like unworthiness or disgust with themselves because they can't do better. How do you think that we can be better about shifting our feelings about money instead of, shame? I think shame's a huge one. Like, a woman will go spend something on her credit card that she knows she shouldn't, but she does it anyway, and then she feels such disgust and shame. How can we shift from that sense of shame to a sense of self-love?
So it's really important to just know that you want to do that to begin with. Just like the awareness that you're feeling shame is huge. Then what I recommend is keeping a journal, and at night, write down 3 things that you value about yourself every night, or 3 ways that you added value to the world that day. So it could be like, I have beautiful hair, and I made a really amazing stir fry, and my husband really loved it, and I gave a great presentation at work. So those would be 3 things that you could write down. And as you do that, you'll build the muscle of noticing how valuable you are. And when you do that, that radiates out into the world, and people will begin to value you more as well. And you'll be able to start to make healthier spending decisions. And you'll also be surprised by what happens in the marketplace in terms of being able to earn more. So valuing yourself, just writing down the 3 things every day is what I recommend doing.
So it's an energetic shift, really.
Yeah, it's shifting from focusing on what's wrong with you to focusing on what's right with you.
That is so simple and so beautiful.
Simple. Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Well, I want to offer everybody that's watching today an opportunity to find you, to find the tools that you've created that are incredible on your website. Just lay it all out. Tell everybody where they can get the book, everything.
So this is the book. I've just got it here on my desk, and you can get this at moneyalovestory.com. So when you go order the book before September 24th, or if you go grab it in the bookstore and go over to moneyalovestory.com, you'll get access to a 2-hour online event I'm doing with guest experts Marianne Williamson, Barbara Stanny, and Amanda Steinberg, who founded dailyworth.com. And it's a 2-hour live online event that you get for free when you buy the book. And it's called A Course in Having Enough. So it's going to really work on reprogramming some of that lack and worry and fear that we've been talking about. But the book is at moneyalovestory.com, and that links over to my site and has all the other fun stuff like my Financial Freedom Friday videos and stuff.
moneyalovestory.com. Well, I feel like this book couldn't have come to the world at a better time. I feel like there's so much uncertainty and fear and all these negative feelings related to money. And I see it with, people my age, people older. Everybody has this sense of lack and fear. And so if we can just learn to love ourselves, shift the energy to a more positive, energetic level, just by even the small shift of being more positive about ourselves, it's just very profound and very powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much. It's such an honor, Kate.
I really appreciate it, Erin. Thank you so much. And thanks for all your support just through the whole writing process. I really appreciate it.
Hey, so I'm here for you. You're amazing.